day, the light is very low, not the low is very low. The light is very low at the moment, so I apologize if the footage is a little bit grainy, but I wanted to have a nice little chat with you guys. Of late, there has been a lot on my plate. I have committed to so much that I can barely catch up with everything that I've committed to, and I've been dealing with a few personal issues, mostly pertaining to my father and his health. And because I am his primary caregiver, he's an aged person, I am helping him to do his, medical exams, to drive him to his medical appointments in the city, and to ensure that he is eating and consuming the right types of food for the situation that he has at the moment in time. So I've had to make mass adjustments. Hello, how are you going? So it's been quite a bit busy. On top of that, I've had an issue with my son who's been formally diagnosed with ADHD. And then there has been that up and down sort of like parental argument and all the concern involving medicating my 8-year-old son. And that has been very, very taxing, very, very time consuming. And then on top of that, I'm adding a room on my tiny home. So the whole place, my whole house is in utter chaos. And there's building happening, and there's like all my gear. I already live in a tiny home, so all of my stuff is like everywhere. It just feels like I'm drowning in things because my space is so small at the moment. So you know what it's like when your environment is like disorderly, even though I know that it's not disorderly permanently, it's disorderly to a point where it's affecting my brain. Anyway, so all of that aside, I just wanted to explain why I haven't been here on this platform a lot more than I usually am. And I had such high hopes for this channel this year. I wanted to be regularly creating, and then I had all these dreams and ambitions to do 2 videos a week and all of this sort of stuff. And these days I'm barely able to do like 1 video a month. That's how it feels. And I've also got my responsibilities on Patreon and readings that I'm doing for clients over on my website. Add to that the stress of actually having so many freaking asshole individuals ripping off my content on Instagram, like just fully creating fake profiles and like reaching out to people and trying to steal people's money on friggin' Instagram. Is like, it's driving me insane. And Instagram doesn't seem to be interested in doing anything to protect its content creators. So I've started to slightly move away from Instagram and focus a little bit more on doing short form videos, which is definitely something that I can commit to at this stage. So I thought, rather than do nothing, I'm going to do short form videos. And that means shorts here on Instagram, reels on, shorts here on YouTube, reels on Instagram and TikTok. And 60-minute videos is what I'm committing to at this moment in time, which I've got to say has, once I got out of my own way, because I had a slight issue with like such short form content. I'm like, how can you really deliver like rich information in very short videos? And I still haven't come up with a magic formula, but what I have become comfortable with at the moment is I have been putting out my short form 60-minute videos, and then I've been posting them on Patreon, and then I have been writing a lot more content to help to expand the topic and to give a bit more information rich sort of background as to why I've decided to do the content that I have been doing. And so that's open to my whole Patreon, whether you pledge $1 or, $10, $12. So that's something that has helped me to get into a more creative headspace. And I feel like I'm pretty harsh with myself, and I'm pretty judgy with myself. And I'm like, if I'm not doing what I feel like I need to do and putting all that pressure on myself and then causing myself an enormous amount of stress, I start to implode on the inside and have these like little mini like how could I call it? I call it brain stutters, like where my brain just literally goes like this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to fucking short circuit here in a minute because I put so much pressure on myself. Anyways, I'm sure many of you can understand this. And there are times where I have all of these options and all of this time, and because I haven't been able to create in such a long time, I'm paralyzed. I don't know what to do. I'm like, oh my God, I've got all this, I've got a day. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do with this day that I have ahead of me? It's getting really crazy. And what I'm talking about more and more here is just about the creator mental health scape, because I don't feel like I've been taking any time to fill my own cup. I have been doing things for everybody else. I've been doing things from a professional perspective. and I haven't had quality, like proper, genuine quality time with my kids and my partner and all of that type of thing. So I'm trying to create a change, and I'm trying to sort of stop going against the grain, where I set myself a goal. And sometimes that goal is not in my best interest, because you notice this. And as a magical thinker, as an esoteric metaphysical thinker, you know, you understand this as well, that you want to achieve something and you go in a direction, right? If that goal, if that thing that you're trying to achieve is right for you, then what will happen is it will be easy. Not so easy that it does itself, but there'll be a sense of flow to it. Like, oh, I'm feeling good about this. Everything's going well. Everything's on track. Very few hiccups take place. Whereas when you are trying to force something to be, okay, I've got a goal. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it in that direction. And you start hitting roadblock after roadblock, and there's like hiccups and interruptions and issues and things that just sort of get in your way, then you know that perhaps that's not the best way to use your time at this moment in time. And to adjust your perspectives, to take a step back, to take a beat, and then to proceed with something else in the interim until the energies are free for you to complete your task. Simple as that. So I'm starting to sort of understand that a little bit more and doing things that way. Anyway, so I have lots and lots to create here, and I'm trying to adjust the way in which I film at this moment in time, because I'm bored with the way that I'm filming. I had such a great time when I was doing my my sort of like witch vlogs. I was getting really creative with my videography during that time. Thank you. And within that sort of vein, I was really learning new things about videography. I was learning how to properly edit. I was learning about, decibel volumes and filters and color correction and things like that, which are not the simplest subjects to try to understand. I'm my son's caregiver as well. He suffered. Oh, that's so sad. No, I'm a Taurus. I'm not a Libra. I am a Taurus with a Scorpio rising. There you go. How's about them polar opposites? So, as I was saying, I was in a really good creative headspace, and I'm not saying that I'm going to start witch vlogging again, because that is definitely something that I wanted to do, but I have been doing a few more vlogs on Patreon with my new partner, because he's a maker and creator with ADHD. So he makes and creates amplified by the power of 10. So all I have to say is, babe, we needed this. And he'll be like, oh, it's done. And I miss it, because he moves so fast. But we have been focused on gardening. We've been focused on getting out there and having like quality life experiences and good family time. And so Patreon is the only place that I really feel comfortable sharing the backstory of my life, where I live, what I'm building, the renovation, whenever we do a project, the changes of the garden, stuff that's happening with the kids, travel, and all of that kind of business. So I've been trying to put together more vlogs there, and I've done a couple so far, but I have been a bit more invested in Patreon just because of the nature and the landscape of what's happening in digital content platforms. It seems like astrology, tarot, and witchcraft based content is getting shushed a lot more on many different platforms. And so creators aren't able to get their content out there to new viewers simply because the platforms and the algorithms that therefore oversee such platforms are literally shushing. And it's just so strange. It seems like a weird digital prejudice. Hold on a minute. How can I be sure that you're not just lying for money? Should I draw 2 cards to test your honesty? You can, if you want. I'm learning to filter for coloring on the tablet, and I'm doing it on... I have my daughter, and she's a Taurus. Oh, beautiful. Opposites as well. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes. So... yeah, there we go. I need to figure out a way to to do the thing here, to do the comments here. What was I saying? Yes, and because of all the shushing that's happening there, more and more creators have either put their accounts on private. My beautiful friend Jamie, who is a creator in the tarot sphere, she does tarot tiles and really cool stuff on tarot and specifically on Instagram. She has gone from a public account to a private account because she was sick of her stuff getting copied and things getting hacked and, you know, all of that kind of business. So there's been a lot of like stuff going on in the background that's made people a little bit more testy about it. My 195 voodoo deck. That's nice. That's great. That's lovely. So what more has been happening? There have been a few other bits and pieces going on in the background, and at the moment I wanted to talk about my bone stone. The state of the postal service here is a little bit funny, but it's starting to open up now, so I'm able to send out replacement decks, which I've only got a handful to send out now, and I've had a few parcels returned. Do you surrender yourself to the otherworldly entities? Well, I'm a spirit worker, so yeah, probably. Furthermore, I am speaking to a publisher at the moment about the second edition of the Bone Stone, and there will have to be adjustments made. Anna she is on board with this as well. We've had joint interviews together with a publisher. Nothing is set in stone yet, and I don't know if I'll be moving ahead. This is just a little backstory. Anna's also been very unwell and she was hospitalized, so we've had to take a pause. She's out of hospital at the moment, but I don't want to put any pressure on her while she's in recovery. And yeah, but the bone stone, because I'm getting so many questions about the bone stone and waiting list information and all of that kind of stuff, I felt it was probably time to start looking at doing a second edition. But with everything the way that it is in the world, I don't even want to get into, like, what do they call it? Geopolitical issues right now between Australia and China and all the stuff that's happening in the world. I don't want to oversee the creation process, the second edition creation process, because that almost broke my brain last time. So I was hesitant to move forward with the second edition full stop. And so if I can get another person to step in, another person being a publisher to step in and just oversee that, then I'm probably much more likely to move ahead with a second edition. So for those who wanted to know whether or not there would be a second edition, it is perhaps in the works. Nothing is set in stone yet. What else has been going on? So much to catch you up on. My baby sister flew out last week. She's going back to Brazil for a visit. So I'm down a helper and a babysitter, which was kind of very helpful to me while I'm juggling so many things. So it's really nice to have my sister living just up in the top cottage, and I can say, can you just watch the kids for 5 minutes while I duck down and do XYZ? I don't have that luxury anymore. So because you're in daily contact with spirits, they can give you tomorrow's winning. Okay. Furthermore, I have been talking about spirit work on my Patreon specifically for Coven members, and I've made a definitive decision this year moving forward with any content that I put out there on Patreon is I was trying to lock myself into like modules and formulas and like, you know, have little series running and things like that. But I was finding that I was boxing myself in more and more and more in an attempt to organize myself and to organize my content and to create cohesion. I was boxing myself in more and more. And I made a decision and a pledge to myself and a promise to myself this year that I would create content on Patreon that really mattered to me, that made my heart sing, that made me excited to create again, because I had stopped. I was in a creative block headspace, and I've slowly started coming out of it a lot more as well. And I've noticed that the things that I have been doing every day, like the little things that I enjoy sharing, the little shorts that I've been making, they're not things that I have a list for. They're just they pop into my head and I'm like, oh, I'd like to talk about that today. And there's a lot more freedom in that for me. And I realize that as a creator, I have a creative headspace and I need to be able to just create when the whim sort of takes over. And you know, that whole type of thing, just like accelerates the creative process. And then I found that the more that I do, the more creativity starts flowing back into myself. Trolls again. There's always trolls. I'm going to just anoint myself. Actually, no, I will spray myself. Actually, no, I will spray myself with Hydrosol. For anyone who cares, this is Healing Light. And this is one of my morning Hydrosols. So it's literally here. I'm sitting at my kitchen table. So it's literally here every day. And I do this little spritzy. And this is Sol, which if you're not familiar with Spanish or Latin for that matter, it's sun, vibrant sun. And then I'm working with these crystals right here in case, oh, I've knocked something off. So these crystals here, I can't remember what this one here is called, but beautiful, beautiful rose quartz. And then I've got a nice piece of citrine here. I have Lakshmi here, just in case anyone cares. And these two oils, which is Goddess Prosperity and Terra, which is Earth. So I might do a little earthing. Thank you so much, Sonia. So, I feel like I need a friggin' cleanse again. This is what I'm talking about. Digital space has gotten a bit, ugh. I have the same spray from the Witch's Moon. Yes, I know. I love to use my Witch's Moon stuff. I have an accumulation of it. And so I use it pretty damn regularly. And I'm sad with myself that I don't talk more about it. I'm going to show you something here. My kitchen table is disgusting at the moment because we're about to put in a new sink. So please forgive the mess. I just wanted to show you. Okay, there's breakfast. And there's my little, see, toaster's over there. There's my little kind of morning altar vibe. That's what it looks like. So I have my sprays and I just sit here and I make it nice and easy for myself because I believe accessibility is important. I don't want to think too much. I'm not a morning person, so believe it or not, I wake up and I look like the Walking Dead. And so I sit down here and I already pre-prepare the table the night before. Either I do it or my partner does it. So I get everything out, I put the cups out, everything's, you know, well positioned in that. And so all I need to do is get up, flick the kettle on, and then make myself a cup of tea. While the tea is actually steeping, I start my I also light this beautiful candle right here, which is gorgeous. And my favorite incense at the moment is Copal and Palo Santo. I'll grab the box and I'll show you. Okay, now I typically burn all different types of stick incense. I don't use stick incense for ritual. When I'm weaving magic, I don't use anything but raw incense, woods, barks, resins, and things of that nature because I'm very, very particular about that type of thing. But this is the stick incense that I'm absolutely head over heels in love with. Yes, I do believe that it's a little bit of cultural appropriation-y business. I think this is made in the Netherlands. Yes, I'm correct, in the Netherlands. I don't know the people that create it. For all I know, they might have legacy, history. I don't want to throw shade. Look at the inside. Look at how beautiful it is. And they're really fat sticks, which sounds funny, but look at how, like, they're really chunky. They're really chunky and they put off the most intense fragrance. So if I light one of these in the morning, by the time you come in the afternoon, you can still smell it in my ambiance. It is magnificent, and I typically light 2 a day. It is so, so delicious to smell. We tried it out. We went over to Signet, which is in Tasmania here, Southern Australia. We went over to Signet, which is like a little bit more alternative and hippie over there. And there's a gorgeous little sort of new age store, and it sells a little bit of everything. And we looked at it and I'm just like, oh, that looks really interesting. I love Palo Santo. I do love Palo Santo. It comes from my neck of the woods, so I feel very kindred. It's very ancestrally connected to me. So I wanted to try it. As soon as I lit this thing, I looked at my partner, he looked at me, and we're like, I think we may have found our soul scent. It was very exciting. And so I have been burning that for morning ritual. We both still go outside with a stick of Palo Santo and do our prayer time. And, you know, we keep it real in that way. But I've tried to create a lot more flow in the mornings for myself. And because of that, we've been getting up very naturally at about 5 o'clock every day. I'm not a morning person, but I've still been waking up early. And because I've been waking up early and the time is really peaceful, I have been able to sit and think. Like, just think. When do we ever have a chance to just sit and just do absolutely nothing? Like, my brain is still in that sleep phase, so it's not forcing anything. It's not saying, oh, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. It's saying we're waking up really slowly. So I go and do my usual thing: tea, incense, candle, sit here with my partner. He and I are pretty sluggish in the morning, so we're both very similar people in that way. And then we start our conversations, and we usually talk about really meaningful things in the morning, and goals and dreams and approaches and projects. And it creates this environment for filling one's cup. But that's the time. And this has not been going on for long, probably the last 5 days, actually, maybe even less. It's just something that happened. We've made slight adjustments to our diet and the way that we spend our time in the evenings, and that's led to a much more restful and peaceful sleep where we wake up in the morning just very naturally, no alarm set or anything like that. And when the kids are here, because I do a week on and week off with my ex-husband, we're up well before they are. We're quiet because we know how to manage our own sound, unlike children who are bang, clatter, bang, clatter. So we are quiet and we get that time in the morning to prepare for the onslaught of energy that, you know, beautiful little ones bring. And that means that I'm a much more peaceful parent in those instances, when I have time to really wake up without being interrupted or forced into any kind of thought pattern or activity. It's a lot better for me. So I have been solidly working on metaphysical maintenance, and I've been talking a lot about metaphysical maintenance with the Coven. And I've just been creating so much more over there. And I'm feeling very proud of myself once more for the type of content that I'm creating over there at this moment in time, because it is very anchored to things that I personally specialize in, that I have a lot of confidence in sharing. And I've started to gear myself a lot more towards educational content, full stop. Not perspectives, not unboxings, not those types of things, but super educational content. And I created a beautiful crystal video the other day, and it was the most intense video to edit, first and foremost, because of what I was saying and what I was showing, and then along with that, a nice, well thought, well written written piece to go with my video. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the platform of Patreon, but you can do a lot over there, video and then written component. And so I spent time creating something that had true, genuine, like oomph to it, and it made me feel just really good. It made me feel like I'd done a really good job, and that's the feeling that I'm chasing at the moment, is making sure that I'm creating to a point where it truly adds value. And with all of these, you know, witchy tip shorts that I've been doing of late, it's really started to stimulate that creative brain. And it's been full on, people. You know how adulting can be? Sometimes I'm not ready for it. I'm just not ready for it. We're entering into a season of ancestral veneration over on Coven. Memory May is what it is called. It begins with the 25th of April here for me personally, which was yesterday, and yesterday was Anzac Day. And my partner and I, we were up for dawn service, so we were out in the slight rain and the cold, and in our down jackets, listening to the veneration event that took place, and it's very respectful and it's deeply meaningful, and it's a time for me to sit there in quiet contemplation and honor my grandfather, who was an Anzac, who's passed away now. And but I grew up on his stories, on his like more upbeat war stories, and it's just a time where I feel quite connected to him, especially since he passed away when I was pregnant with my son. So we're talking 8 or 9 years ago now. It's been almost a decade, but I still think of him often, and on Anzac Day I very specifically think about him in some of the stories. And to my ancestors, and I'm here today. That's beautiful. So for me, once we talked about this last year, we discovered that there was a bit of a pattern in the world, and it was a very memorial style pattern. So we decided in Coven that we would dedicate the month of May to Memory May. So it's a time for working with spirit, it's a time for working with ancestors. So that is the kind of information that therefore gets exchanged over there. And I've been talking a lot about metaphysical maintenance over there and making sure your house, and I mean you internally and externally, your house is in order, and also your physical environment. Because I'm a big believer in making sure that things are in order, because you do feel your absolute best. And talking about spirit work and talking about ancestry. And we have been, in the book club, we've been buddy reading spell crafting. If you give me 1 second, I'll show you the book, if I can find it, which apparently is lost to me. No, wait. I did a thing. I may as well show you my haul. I was planning on doing a haul video. I don't like that. So, or maybe I do. I don't know. We have been reading this one right here, which is Spellcrafting, the power of your craft by creating and casting your own unique spells. Erin Murphy Hiscock, author of The Green Witch. Now, I did not like The Green Witch book, but I'm very particular with my literature, and I'm coming at literature with a certain background. So there's stuff that I just don't want to hear any more of, and I find is repeated in a lot of books. I'm very critical of literature because I do read a lot. So I have a very high standard when it comes to books. And this one here, I decided to give the author another go. And I found this to be a pretty decent book, especially for beginners. There are a few critiques that I would have, but all in all, I would say this is a fairly solid book. So if you're wanting to learn more about witchcraft and you're new to witchcraft, you are a neophyte, a baby witch, a beginner witch, call it what you will. This is probably a really great start for you, because this is a amalgamation of so much witchy literature. And I've been reading books on witchcraft specifically since the early 90s. So I recognize a lot of content from other books in here. So it seems to be a very respectful amalgamation of information. So I would recommend that. I'm almost to the end of it. I started listening to it on Audible, so I'm audio booking it, but because of the nature of the book, it feels very reference material rich. And hang on, I'll show you. I'll give you a little. It has practice spells, it has lists, it has recipes such as this, things that you may want to tab up, information that you may want to. Here we go. Deciding on group versus solitary spellcrafting, mind games, solo spellcrafting. Let's see. I'll read you the table of contents. So you've got your introduction, then you've got your part 1, which is the basics of spellcrafting. Spellcrafting defined, the ethics of spellcrafting, and crafting a spell. That's chapter 1, 2, and 3. And then part 2 is casting your spells, timing your spells, correspondences, raising energy, methods of magic. That is chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and 8, troubleshooting, and 9, solo spell crafting and group spell crafting. And then part 3, make it your own. and that is The Art of Magical Substitution, Spells to Inspire, Beyond Spellcrafting. These are chapters 10, 11, and 12. Then we have an appendix, which is correspondences by component, A and B correspondences by need, resources, index, etc. So it's fairly comprehensive, and she does a pretty good job of delivering her information in a very neutral setting. And there were some really valuable pieces of advice here that I have personally shared time and time again about spirit work and calling on deities in particular, because I have very specific protocols when doing so. And when a client comes to me for a spirit work session, I share those protocols in those moments, because it's not as easy as people like to make it out. It's not a fast food practice, spirit work. So that is spellcrafting. So that was a really good one. Let's move on. I do have a lot of books I need to catch up on, and I'm getting there. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And if anyone cares, if anyone likes to read and you would like to join my magical library, which is what it's called, it's my book club on Patreon, it is $3 a month. So we do a lot of buddy reading. We're doing this one here, which is a magical reference book, and we are also doing Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, which is fantasy. What's my other book? I'll show you the books first that I purchased. Wildcraft, The Science and Spirit of Wild Plants as Food Medicine. So I bought that one right there. It kind of called to me. It's very illustration rich, so really pretty. I don't know much about it. I don't recognize the name of the author. Some of you might. It is Heidi Merica. Cat's ear. The way that it was laid out is what kind of got me, because it talks about the plant spirit qualities, keyword, open mind, greater perspective and possibility. And so I do like that. I do like that kind of esoteric information woven into green witchcraft books and plant medicine books. So I guess the tried and true, herbal magic book is Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. Hold on, I got a call. And so with that said, I'm always looking for books like that, and I'm yet to find the most comprehensive one that does talk about esoteric information. Many of them do, and I've got many books on herbs and magic and esoteric information, but they're all very they focus on very specific plants. And not all the plants, especially in my biosphere, are present there. And as a witch that believes in, vivid energy, which I'll talk about it another time, but vivid energy is the energy present, the chi, the prana present in plants that are specifically grown. With that in mind, I'm interested in working with plants of my biosphere. So, with that said, I'm always on the hunt for books on herbal magic. And then I got another Erin Murphy Hiscock book, and I've decided to take a stab at it because I was pleasantly surprised with spellcrafting. Didn't really like green witchcraft, but do like spellcrafting, so I've decided to try her protection spells book as well, because I love protective magic. I mean, I'm all in. I'm all about it, I was raised in a culture that was very, very aware of the evil eye. I'm Brazilian, in case you didn't know, and are only just tuning into my video right now if you don't know any of my history. So in Brazil specifically, especially in my part of the world, or the part of the world that I grew up in, the evil eye is something that can truly deplete a person of their chi, their prana, their energy. And so to the point where when a baby is born, they usually have a little, like a tiny little gold safety pin, and it has a figure, which is a hand that looks like this, and it's made out of a wood, specifically a Arruda Guiné, and it is pinned to the inside singlet of a newborn baby to keep the evil eye away, so that baby has an opportunity to thrive. And so I'm all for protection magic. Having had it drummed into me, rather aggressively too, I might add, growing up. Yeah, it's a thing. So they're the 3 books that I got, I picked up, and I also picked one up for my partner, which were like druid herbs. I don't know where he's put that because he's currently reading it at the moment. So it was a total of 4 books. Now it's time for the decks, okay? So I've picked up the Tarot of Light and Shadow by John Matthews. And this is supposed to be the most fascinating deck because it is 2 decks in one. You have a light or a shadow. You have a shadow and a light version. You can mix it all together or you can separate it depending on the reading that you wanted to do. I found the concept to be rather interesting and I wanted to experiment. So I decided to get it and play around. It cost me $80, $79.95. Australia is very expensive. And then because of the cover alone, I picked this one here up. And this one here is the Raven's Wand Oracle by Steve Hutton. And it looked really witchy and whimsical, sort of that wind-swept whimsy. It's a US games system deck. Who published this one? Watkins published this one. US Games, this one right here. So sorry for the glare. I'll bring it a little closer. This is the back. Sorry for the glare again. And then last but by no means least is the Kali Oracle. This is a Blue Angel deck. I've been eyeing this one off for a while. I haven't bought a Blue Angel deck for a really long time, and I haven't actually been buying tarot and oracle decks all that much. So from time to time I splurge, but I haven't actually bought a deck for a long time, for a really long time actually. And I'm even shocked to say it now that I'm thinking about it. It's probably took me a year to add a new deck to my collection that I personally purchased. Having said that, I'm very blessed as a digital content creator. I have companies send me decks. They're not always to my liking, and most often they are not the specific deck that I myself would have chosen. They're beautiful. They give me the opportunity to get introduced to new decks and to also introduce new decks to you guys. So I've got 2 there from Rockpool that I have to do an unboxing of and do a little share of. And I'm looking at them because they're quite interesting and I've not seen anything like it. So I'm pretty excited to be able to share that and to sort of look at it for myself. So it's always really, really fun. And then the last thing that I purchased is this earth incense. They look like this. And this one is handmade incense. West Australian sandalwood and Australian vetiver. It's tribeearth.com.au. These are naturally compressed incenses. They're kind of like really clayey. Like they're like a hardened mud pie, if you will, which I quite like. They put off a lot of smoke. So I went on a big shopping spree at the Page and Cup in Hobart City. And she was kind enough, Lynn was kind enough to burn a little bit for me to smell, and it puts off a lot of smoke. So if you're familiar with burning charcoal discs, then you would be familiar with the amount of smoke that actually bellows out of these ones. So that was my little haul, and I was supporting the Page and Cup. And with everything the way that it is at the moment, economies and small businesses have taken a huge hit. So I decided that I would go and support a shop that I would like to see remain open, because it's pretty much the last metaphysical shop that is geared towards esoteric magic. Not the only sort of new age store, but this one here offers workshops and information and books and decks and all sorts of goodies that have been very well thought out. And there is a plethora of books. There's ceremonial magic books there, and some of the grimoire books. There are sections of paganism, then green witchcraft, then spellcrafting, and it's a very well laid out bookstore in that sense. But then a great selection of decks, and she does support independent creators. So you do find the odd, self deck on her shelf, which I think is really lovely, and so many lovely little goodies in there. So I do want it to remain open, and I really am keen on supporting my local businesses here so that they don't close, because one did close and that was very, very sad. And yeah, so every once in a while I come out of my little off-grid tiny home and I interact with oh hello lovely, how you going? Yeah, and I interact with people, as it would seem, because I can get very insular. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that are blessed with enjoying their own company, and that's not actually the healthiest sort of headspace. A little bit of your own time is really good for you. A lot of your own time can sometimes be really healing and really good for you. But if all you're getting is your own company, then you're probably a hermit, in which case that's probably not all that good for you. And I say that rather reluctantly because I do like my own company. I like the idea of being able to read whatever I want and do some art and do some journaling, which I've been very into at the moment, and playing with my watercolors and all of that. So can you get the prana back after it's been drained by the evil eye? You absolutely can. Yeah, you can. That's the idea of it. That's why we do cleansings. That's why we do bindings. That's why there are so many different types of magical practices in place, because they all, one taps into the other. One is a medicine for the other, if that makes sense. So a binding can actually be a really positive and medicinal thing. So for example, if I wanted to bind a bad habit, I would do that. So if I wanted to stop biting my fingernails like I have before, if I really wanted to, or freeze some kind of bad behavior, then I would do a binding on that. But there's also a lot of information that needs to be understood first before performing a binding, because a binding is actually, it's good, yes, but it can also be bad if it's not done correctly. And the terms good and bad there are very relative, but it can be constructive or destructive depending on, you know, the reason, the results. And I also find that there can sometimes be a bit of confusion. Like, there is a difference between a binding and a cord cutting, and sometimes people go in the direction of a binding because that's what they know, that's what they've heard, but really what is necessary is in fact a cord cutting. And a cord cutting can be quite aggressive, and it's a little bit heavier magic. It's a very simple process, but the energetic repercussions of a cord cutting can actually sting a little bit. And these are things that people don't necessarily talk about, and these are things that are really good to learn about. And so if you're learning magic, make sure you fill the gaps for yourself. And these are the things that I like to talk about in my coven, in my space, in my magical practice, because those that are there to specifically hear what I've got to say. So I'm going to share everything that I possibly can with them. Anyway, so there's a lot to be said about that. And when it comes to evil eye, cleansings can be so beautiful. And evil eye can sometimes be quite debilitating and quite overpowering, and it can block the roads. So sometimes it's a cleansing, sometimes it's a full-blown energetic exorcism, sometimes it's a road opener that needs to be done. It really depends on the nature of the liberation that needs to take place. And too much evil eye, too much envy placed on a person, it can be very, very restrictive. So if you find that you're the type of individual that is an incredible creator and very successful in life and doing the things, and then suddenly one day they wake up and they've lost their mojo, they can't do the things anymore, or they can see what needs to be done but can't quite get from A to B, there's something invisible holding you back. It's because some of that has been stolen from you. Too much envy projected at an individual is really, really genuinely unhealthy. And I would just go as far as to say that when I was experiencing my creative blocks, that was a result of the evil eye. I don't like to say those things out loud because sometimes it's poor sleep. Sometimes it's actually, poor nutrition. You need to make sure that energy is traveling through your body and around yourself in a really healthy way, which is why I'm big on speaking about metaphysical maintenance. But if I'm eating shitty food and I'm drinking shitty drinks and I'm not sleeping adequately and spending my time in, ridiculous ways, then of course I'm not going to be at my optimal level of vitality. And so vitality is where you begin. Your environment is where you begin, and your habits are where you begin. But once all of that has been put into place and you're like, well, I've been eating really well, I've been drinking well, I've been spending my time well, but I'm still in this headspace, then it's time to look at things that are a more metaphysical reasoning and more metaphysical practices. So I like to begin in the physical and then go into the metaphysical first, because I find that, and this is coming from my culture, mind you, my culture taught me this. In my culture, everything is because of magic. You're sick, somebody's hexed you, and it's too much. Whereas here in Australia, there's none of that. And so you can get a bit complacent as well. You forget because the pressures are, you don't have people saying, oh, someone's hexed you, or that sounds like a curse, or I reckon someone's thrown something at you. Like, that's always there in my in my homeland. And people are always doing like crossroads work. So you go past the crossroads in Rio and you're always going to see people's magic sitting at crossroads because everyone's been hexed. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because in a culture that practices a lot of magic, it does happen over there, and it is something to be aware of. But when 100% of the reasoning is because of magic, I don't quite go that way. I'm not quite as absolute as that. I'm not made that way. So I understand that certain things are because you've made poor choices, and other things that are outside of your control can be a little bit more questionable, if that makes sense. So I like to be fairly balanced with my outlook on magic, full stop. And I don't try to get too carried away in curses and hexes and things like that. I don't completely disregard it, but I certainly don't fixate on it. And is it difficult, especially since I didn't grow up? It's a thing. It's a thing. And there's a lot of there is a lot to be said about home and hearth magic. Metaphysical maintenance is, especially of the home, is a version of home and hearth magic. You know, I shared a reel or a short, or whatever you want to call it. I shared a little mini video, I'll call it, a little while back, about the fact that there was a rotting smell in my house, and I was the first one to notice it. And usually that's the way it goes down. The more magical or the more sensitive the person in your house will pick up on this type of thing before anybody else, okay? Kids are particularly good at it, but I kept on waking up and sitting down at the counter, and all the windows are open and that. And I do live on a rural property, and animals do die, and you do get the occasional smell of like a dead animal, you know, because I live in such a wild place. 28 wild acres of bush with all different types of creatures running through. I've got dogs, and there are other predatory animals out there. And so you do get the smell of that decay from time to time, but this was perpetual smell of decay. I was walking the perimeter of my property. I was going out into the bush, and usually you can find it, because if you can smell it in the kitchen, it's fairly close to the house. Nothing. I went through my bins, I went through my cupboards, I went through my fridge, and I washed and wiped and everything. And I did the standard process, you know, of elimination, because my brain just won't naturally jump to that. And then I'm sitting here one day and I'm like, and it dawned on me, and I'm like, there's a spirit in the house. I've invited a spirit in the house. And then it came back to me that my grandmother, my mother have always like drilled this into me. It's very difficult for me to do this here, mind you, but they've drilled this into me. Never go to sleep with dirty dishes in the sink. Never ever do that. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that option because I live off grid. The sun, and I work off solar energy. So the sun disappears at about, especially in winter, at like 4:30 in the afternoon. Right now, by 6 o'clock, it's already fairly dark because we're in autumn. And I can't run my sink. I can't run the water pump because it pulls a lot of power. So I have to leave my dishes soaking until the following day when the sun comes up, so that I can then run the water pump and wash my dishes. So I wash my dishes daily. Yes, that absolutely happens. And I take my bin out daily, which also happens. So these are, you know, natural things that I would do. But I can't not leave a dirty dish in the sink, because of the fact that I can't run my pump, and I can't really use all of that power at night. Anyway, so I'm thinking, oh God, I'm going to have to do something here. So there's ways around this. Because this is outside of my ability to control, there are ways around this. So I understand that if I'm going to leave my dishes in the sink, I at least need to, at the early hours of the day, fill up my sink so that when I'm finished with my dinner dishes, soak, and I put it in a little bucket. And in that bucket, I throw boiling water, salt, and rosemary. Boom, the smell disappears. The smell just fucking disappears. I have a blue bucket that I use, a square blue bucket that I put beside the sink. I fill it up with water, and in the morning I just tip that out of the sink. The salt and the rosemary help to cleanse my off-grid water pipes, and then I can wash it in the morning. And since I started that practice, the smell is no longer there. That feel that I was getting is no longer there. And the little happenings that were taking place were also no longer there. So it took me a little minute to get there. And some of magic is about the process of deduction. So you try, and you eliminate. So I keep getting phone calls, so this is probably a good time for me to actually go, folks. I've talked a lot about a lot of things here, but if you do want to learn more specifically about magic, then I do encourage you to come and join me over on Patreon. I know that it is a financial cost that some of you may not be able to, to afford at this moment in time. So I do my best with offering what I can here on YouTube and being very chatty in this way. And but I'm trying to gear more towards witchcraft for baby witches as well. I've started a baby witch section on my Discord, and I'm talking a lot more about, practical magic of the folk magic variety, which I believe personally is my specialty. I was born in a folk magic environment and a spiritist center, and that's what I know the best. So when it comes to cleansing magics, metaphysical maintenance, practical magic and practical spellcraft and bindings and cord cuttings and, sigil magic and talisman magic and dream pillows and all sorts of shit. I can make those things. I can teach people how to make them in the simplest form ever. And I am a big friggin' believer in your own biosphere. Yes, all the books will tell you to work with frankincense. Can you grow frankincense in your own yard? Possibly not. In which case, substitution is essential. Why not try rosemary? It grows almost anywhere. So I'm a big believer in using plants of your own biosphere and materials that can be wild harvested in your space, because the chi, the energy, the vibe in that plant is going to be absolutely acute when compared to a dried botanical that has been sitting on a shelf or in a plastic packet for a prolonged period of time. I have a lot of opinions about this. This is what I'm ranting about today on my on my Patreon. So I put up a TikTok, and then I wrote a big thing about it over on Patreon talking about this. It's not that dried herbs are bad. It's understanding the nature of energy and the quantity of a plant that is needed to get that oomph and that magical energy. If it's dried, you need more of it. If it's fresh, you need hardly any. You know what I mean? Because the energy is so vibrant and vivacious. And it's very common sense, which is why it's part of practical magic, my loves. And I would love to talk more about that with you, but my honey is trying to call me, and he's like, why can't I speak to you at the moment? And I've got a very sad face emoji there. Let me just flick that one away. All right, my beautiful souls. Well, it was lovely to chat with you. It's been almost an hour. And I've talked about a lot. I've got rosemary, lavender, and basil, mint growing well. That's beautiful, because rosemary is so good and has so many properties, as does lavender. You can use a lavender in a sleep pillow, but you can also use lavender in a prosperity pillow. You can put it in a friggin' cleansing and blessing bath. Lavender is amazing. If you don't like the smell of it, it's pointless having it, but it has such a kick-ass energy. Mint is also really, so yummy. So yummy. It's good for waking up the mind. A good peppermint tea or a little dab of peppermint on your body really clears out the mind fog. It's good for money magic. It's good for cleansing and clearing. You can add drops of peppermint oil in your toothbrush and it's got that. It's just good. It's just good vibes, folks. I'm very passionate about what I'm passionate about. What can I say? So I've got a lot to say, a lot to talk about, and I've got my teacher hat on at the moment, and it feels good. It feels good. I've finally gotten, you know, a few messages come through to me from some beautiful people going, it's time for you to just step into it and embrace it a little bit more. Step into your power, embrace it a bit more. Don't be frightened to admit what you're not good at, and don't be frightened to share what you are good at. I'm not good at ceremonial magic. Do I understand it? A little bit. Am I into it? Not particularly. Grimoire magic is definitely not my specialty. I am a folk magical practitioner and a spirit worker. So those things I can teach until the cows come home. Am I good at tarot? Yes, I fucking well am. I'm a tarot professional, a tarot deck aficionado, a collector, a creator. So I'm very passionate about cartomancy, specifically tarot and oracle, but I am learning Lenormand. So I can't teach it. I can only tell you how I'm going with it, you know? And I think part of what is happening online now is that too many people are talking about things or repeating things that they don't have that greater grasp on, and it's perpetuating misinformation. So I will not be talking about things that I do not know about here on my channel. I'm not going to be explaining pagan holidays to you because I don't actually give a fuck. And I will not be explaining things like ceremonial magic or even rune magic for that matter. I do have runes, I do work with runes, but I'm not a specialist with the subject of runes. But I love intoning runes. There's a very specific way in which I personally use runes, the Elder Futhark runes in my practice, but I will not teach that because it is not my specialty. And so, wow, I really went there. I felt a lot of chi when I was talking about that. oh, my vibe is up high now. Thanks for that. Thank you for holding space for me during this time, 56 minutes and 19 seconds. Thank you for holding space. I've had a lot to say and I didn't even realize it. And I feel really good within myself at the moment. I feel like I've released something somehow. So thank you for being a part of my cleansing today. And I sincerely hope, guys, that you are all doing really, really well. It's been a very hard time for so many people out there. And I've got to say that I have seen and heard so much troublesome information from all different people from all parts of the world. So it's really a difficult time at the moment, not to mention the geopolitical stuff that's happening that is impacting everyone in one way or another at this moment in time. So I just want you all to be very safe and very happy and very creative. And if I can contribute to that in any way, I will do my best to do so. And with all of that said and done, I'm wishing you so much love, luck, peace, and joy. Take care of yourselves. Mwah! And I will chat to you again soon.